Sorry for the delay. A few technical problems this end tonight. And I might be a co-host down, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to get stuck right into this. So I recently saw, because I'm a big fan of, let's just get this out there. I'm a big fan, and I mean a big fan of actor Matthew Modine. This is partly because, of course, Alan Parker, the late great Alan Parker, directed Birdie, and that was the film that brought me to the attention of Matthew Modine, which kind of deals with PTSD, a kid dealing with the repercussions of serving in Vietnam. It's a particularly effective film. This is Birdie I'm talking about, not Cutthroat Island. We'll get onto that in just a second. And it's very, very, it's a very, very good movie. If you haven't seen it, you should. I don't want to say any more than that, but that's the film that brought me to the attention of Matthew Modine. So I've followed Modine's career since Birdie, and he did another film, which is a film I'm very passionate about as well. So I'm going to talk about Modine for a little bit, actually, before we get into Cutthroat Island, and why I think he was a perfectly good choice to jump into the shoes of Michael Douglas, even though internationally maybe people didn't perceive him as quite as big a bankable star. But we are talking 1995. Modine had a number of very big and successful movies at that time, including doing the lead in Full Metal Jacket. But sometime before then, my God, adverts everywhere. Let's just do a quick block on this. Thank you very much. But before he did Full Metal Jacket, before he did Cutthroat Island, he did a number of other successful films, and also meaty roles, decent roles, big roles, complex roles. One of the best roles of Modine's early work would be in the film And the Band Played On. If you haven't seen the band And the Band Played On, you absolutely should. It's an incredibly compelling true story drama about the HIV epidemic in the 80s, and also the failure of the US government to act on it efficiently and take action at the speed that would have saved thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. Matthew Modine plays a doctor in this, Dr. Francis, and in fact, this film partly inspired a play that I did in the late 90s called High on Vince. Had to think about that. It's that film is a really good piece of work. You can see the whole film for YouTube on YouTube for free. But that's not the only thing that Modine had done prior to Cutthroat Island. He had been in a number of other pictures. So, but Cutthroat Island had problems from the word go. It was handed to Rennie Harlin. It's huge project, huge script, and it was a throwback to the old sort of buccaneer pictures of Hollywood back in the day. Now, these films had been very popular, and there'd been a number of attempts to resurge that genre. One of those was The Scarlet Buccaneer, or to use the German title, because that's the only way I could get a Blu Ray, Der Scarlet Pirate, with Robert Shaw. Now, it's no coincidence that the writers had watched this movie, and they talk about it on the extras on the Blu Ray, and I'll talk about the extras on the Blu Ray in a little bit. I think the character of Shaw, Matthew Modine's character, was named after Robert Shaw's character in The Buccaneer. It's called The Bucket. So this film has about, by the way, this film's got about 7 or 8 titles, depending on what territory you may or may not have seen it in. But it also stars James Earl Jones, and there he is. If you look there, the man who does the voice of Darth Vader, James Earl Jones and Robert Shaw in a pirate movie. What's not to like? Yeah, Redbox Blu Ray, says Irene Jobson. It is it hasn't aged brilliantly. I'll be honest, because when I watched it, I remember thinking I thought it was better than this. And Cutthroat Island is it a better film? We'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, these are 2 pirate movies that I have a lot of affection for. There was also a film that came out called The Pirate Movie in the 80s, which was I think it was a German-Australian co-production. That kind of bombed as well. So in 1995, they thought it was time to do another pirate movie. Irene Johnson, you can send a super chat if you want. I think you may mean you can't afford to, and that's perfectly all right. I appreciate you tuning in and watching the show. I really do appreciate that. We've already got some comments about the movie. Terrible movie. It's fun though. Can it be completely terrible if it's fun? That's the question I think we should be asking. I'm going to get into what I think about it in just a sec, but let's talk about the production. I'm going to put this lovely still back up. So the production did have a number of issues before it even started filming. And one of those was that Michael Douglas was attached to the production to play Shaw, to play the Matthew Modine role right up until the last minute, and he dropped out. He dropped out because he didn't like the script rewrites. He thought that Geena Davis's part was really the lead role, which is true. She is really the lead role in the movie. Just adjusting my chair here a bit. Not very comfortable right now. Oh, that's better. The script went through a lot of rewrites before it even went to before they even went to day one of filming. They also paid a British scriptwriter quite a substantial fee, and Rennie Harlin and Geena Davis paid for this guy themselves. And I'm not quite sure. They came to come in and do a polish, and I'm not quite sure where the money went or why this person was paid that ridiculous sum. And I think the problem with this film, and it's got more than one problem, but the problem of this film is there are too many cooks. What you needed was a solid, good script, and I'm going to get into what's wrong with the script in a bit. A solid, good script from the get-go that was going to not be meddled with, and you also needed a very hands-on producer throughout the production with Rennie Harlin. And because Carolco Pictures, which was Mario Casar's company that was producing it, was in financial difficulty at the time, he was quite hands-off on the picture because he had a lot on his plate. Now, this Blu-ray is the new sort of anniversary release. If you're a fan of this film or you don't have it in your collection and you want it, this is definitely the version you should be getting. I've watched all the special features, and I'm going to talk about those before we get into casting and before we talk about the script and what I like about the movie, what I don't like about the movie, where I think the problems lie, and how I'm also going to talk about how I think the film could be fixed. I mean, in an ideal world, what if I had been hired to come in and do those rewrites for Rennie and Geena? I'll tell you what I would have put in. And maybe those scenes were already there and they got cut, because it does feel like probably quite a lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. So new features that haven't been on previously released versions of this movie. that are on the Blu Ray. I'm just going to read them out to you. There's The Adventure of a Lifetime, Making Cutthroat Island. That's really a kind of a making of with all of the people that are living now, talking about the movie and looking back. There's a number of the cast involved. You've got Rennie Harlin being quite philosophical about the whole thing. You've got producer Mario Casar, Gina Davis, sadly not taking part. Then you've got Charting the Course, Creating Cutthroat Island, which is more about, it's really the two script writers and the journey that they went through coming up with this project, and talking about that. James Woolward has mentioned quite rightly Carolco of Terminator 2 fame. I mean, Mario Casar and Andrew Vanya had a number of really good hits on their hand, but they sank themselves into prep with too many productions, and they got, unfortunately, they got into really bad financial difficulty. This film wasn't the sole reason for sinking the company, but if the film had been a massive success, it could have saved the company. So that's the difference. A lot of people say Cutthroat Island sank Carolco. Carolco was already sinking before Cutthroat Island went into production. The difference was, if Cutthroat Island was a success, it was going to save the company. If it wasn't a success, it was going to make it sink a lot faster. And believe me, Okie Native, I'm going to be getting into that script in just a second. It was supposed to be a savior. Mate, we are singing from the same song sheet. So you've also got on here Summon Your Courage, Scoring Cutthroat Island. I'm going to talk about the music at length, actually. Across the Bow, Editing Cutthroat Island. And then, most interesting of all, there is a short film on here called The Eki Pirate. It is a black and white short film, and you can watch it with or without commentary. And it was made by Matthew Modine, predominantly Matthew Modine, and two of the other actors on the cast who got into. They had quite a lot of downtime, and they were on location for a really long time in Malta, and then they went to Thailand. And Matthew Modine just decided to get a camera, and he would shoot this kind of silent movie. It's very reminiscent of the black and white series Robinson Crusoe, if anyone else is old enough to remember that. And he would shoot it on his days off or in between takes of the production. So while they've got the big battle scenes going on, in between a cut, Modine would quickly run his camera and he would shoot footage, battle footage for his movie about this young boy who's kidnapped and turned into the life of a pirate, and sort of what happens to him, and then the older version of him comes back. It's a really nice little black and white 20-minute movie. It's on here. Like I said, it's also got a commentary with Modine and the main other British actor that works on it with him, and they're clearly still friends. Matthew Modine came to Timber Theatre, which I used to teach at, which was, of course, run by Dexter Fletcher at the time that Modine came, along with Graham Fletcher Cook, Dickon Tolson, myself, and Peter Saracen would all end up teaching drama there. We would all be students under the Fletcher's tutelage early in our life, and we ended up teaching there. So even though I've never met Matthew Modine properly, I've mixed in circles. I also had friends in Memphis, Bell, and visited the set and things like that. So, you know, I've seen him around, but never got to have a proper conversation with him, which is a bit of a shame. But and I also was supposed to go and see him in the play he did in London recently. I was going to say One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's not that. It's the one where the man is on trial for murder, not for murder, for assaulting a white woman, and he's playing Atticus Finch. And I had tickets to go and see that, and I had COVID. And I couldn't go. I was actually pretty ill, So I missed my chance of seeing Matthew Modine act on stage in London recently. Anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. So also on the Blu-ray, you have a new commentary by director Rennie Harlin. You've got a load of other usual things like the original trailer, some interviews from the day, behind the scenes storyboards, and a making of from back in the day. The stuff now with people looking back is much more interesting than the stuff that was made as companion pieces then, because there's lots of talking about the things that went wrong, why they went wrong, and so on. No, Irene, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is the one set in the mental health institution, which Jack Nicholson played the part of in the film. I'm talking about the court case movie with Atticus Finch, which Modine played on stage recently. I don't know why I can't remember the title. It's just gone out of my head. The same part was played by Gregory Peck in the movie. Anyway, I won't bother to look it up because I could. So if you like your extras, there's lots of them on here. You'll not be disappointed. Plenty of extra content on the Blu-ray. The quality of the Blu-ray is really good. I really like the Blu-ray. The transfer is excellent. So no technical gripes about Cutthroat whatsoever. Okay. So that's the Blu-ray and the content. The Eki Pirate, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a really good little film. And I would definitely recommend watching that before you do anything else. Watch it without the commentary first, and then watch it with a commentary. Yes, thank you. To Kill a Mockingbird is the play that I just missed Modine perform in London, and apparently he was amazing. So, Cutthroat Island. Okay, let's just talk through the script. It's 1668 Jamaica. There's a honey sting operation, sort of honey trap operation, where Morgan Adams, this notorious female pirate, is basically set up to be captured. She's in bed with a man. They've just spent the night together. He's like, "Aha, I've captured you." And she's like, "Aha, you haven't, because I emptied your gun." And her men are coming to rescue her. And pretty soon, she manages to thwart this guy. She escapes. There's lots of big dramatic shots of her riding horses across beaches and through water in very narrow stretches of sand, to come back to her father's ship. But at her father's ship, her uncle has taken over the ship because he wants the father's treasure. And in order to get the treasure map, he's got to, find out where the treasure is, he's got to get 3 sections of a scalp map. So in order to get one part of the map, he had to scalp her dad. So when she comes back to the ship, she finds that her evil uncle, who we've never met before in the film, big problem that, going to come back to that, Uncle Dog, who's played by the excellent Frank Langella, who does his best with what he's given. And he kills the father. We never really meet the father. We never really even see the father. Going to come back to that as well. He's chucked overboard, and he reveals another section of the map is, which is on his scalp. Sorry, I got that wrong earlier. Morgan now has one section of the map. There's a lot of confusion over. We got a big group of pirates that generally all used to be one band, and they both used to work under her father, and also under Dog Brown. I think they were all part of one big crew. These crews separate at this point, but it's not made very clear in the movie when exactly that happens, or who ends up fighting for who and why. But the long and the short of it is, there are some pirates who are loyal to Morgan. I'm sure she's called Morgana a couple of times in the film, but let's call her Morgan because that's what Wikipedia says. And then there are other pirates who are loyal to Dog Brown, possibly one of the crappiest character names in cinema history. Chaos ensues. There are chases. There's searches for other pieces of the map. There's a fight in a big bar. There's a chase. We're introduced to Matthew Modine's character, Shaw. We're at a party of British high society in the Jamaican islands. We're introduced to our British protagonists, our bad guys, that consist of Patrick Malderhyde playing the kind of evil governor, and then his number two, who's played by a British actor called Angus Wright, I believe, who recently has just been in Dreaming Whilst Black. Great actor. And they're sort of your two comedy bad guys, whereas Uncle Dog, with that name, should be a comedy bad guy, is actually more of a serious villain. So there's a big battle in Spitalfield Harbour. There's a chase. People escape. People are captured. We find out where we're going for the treasure island, the Cutthroat Island of the piece, where the gold of Morgan's father is buried. Two ships are sailing there to get one ahead of the other. There are some betrayals. One character betrays them. Some people change sides. It's a bit confusing, to be honest. In the end, we get to the treasure. The treasure is recovered. The bad guys then, of course, capture the treasure. Morgan is captured. Modine's character is captured, and the two ships are sailing back to port. One with the treasure on and the main villains on it, and the other one with the lesser villains on, and most of our good guy crew, who soon recapture that ship with a bit of subterfuge and guile. And then that brings us to the sequence that you're looking at here, which is what we want to see in any pirate movie. Definitely one of the film's plus points, which is a big face-off between two ships, at least two ships. And we do get that in Cutthroat Island. We do get one of the best ship-to-ship battles in cinema history in Cutthroat Island, for sure. That sequence alone. That sequence still has problems, but it is a good sequence. So, massive battle, face-off between major villains and minor villains, and major heroes and minor heroes. The good guys win the day. There's some cheesy dialogue. The film finishes. Okay, that's the basic plot of Cutthroat Island. Why is this film? Why did it tank? And why is it still a film with problems? Well, there's lots of reasons why it tanked, and I think, and why it still has problems. I think that the main reason are still both the same, and that is the script has massive issues. First of all, there is not a lot of setup prior to this very loud, very big, busy plot beginning. And boy, oh boy, is this film busy. It's like when they were in the editing room, somebody just kept saying, yeah, could you put music on that shot? Can you put music on that shot? There is wall-to-wall music in this film, virtually the whole way through the movie. And at times when I was watching it, honestly, because this is the first time I've watched the film since I saw it at the cinema back in 95. So I remember it was very big and blustery and all the rest of it, but I remembered being disappointed in it, and I couldn't remember why, because it's so long ago. Okay. But now I do remember why, all these years ago. And it was that there's not enough setup at the beginning of the film. First of all, we don't see Gina Davis's father character properly. We see him very briefly. It's in the dark. We don't see his face. There's no scene where, we establish who. There's some titles at the beginning and some voiceover and stuff, but there's no scene that establishes the relationship between Morgan and her dad. That they have a close relationship. That he has presumably taught her all of her pirate skills, her nautical skills, her combat, her skills in combat, all of these things. We need that scene. We need one scene. Now, that scene could have also set up the nature of the relationship between the uncle, the dad's brother, and Morgan, Gina Davis's character, and his greed. So, for example, there could have just been a dinner scene at the beginning, or a dialogue scene on deck on the ship where they're all together and they're talking about their next mission. And Dog is somebody says, we've got more to add to the pile. And Dog says, well, why don't we go and get that pile, and why don't we spend it? What's the point of being pirates if we don't get to spend our money? And maybe Morgan's dad disagrees and says, well, it's, you know how we keep the men in line. It's all about the chase, because that's really what the movie is about. And, you know, we see in Dog's eyes, he disagrees, and we can tell this guy is greedy. And then Gina then says, okay, I've got to go and visit the Earl of Jamaica Port, or whatever. And she's off to go and meet her sexy man. And then we have that scene, and this is all kind of pre-title sequence stuff. This is all opening act stuff. We don't have those scenes. So what we have is extremely expositionary, barely functional dialogue that is so awful. A 5-year-old could have written it. And I'm not talking about the whole film here, but I am talking about the first 10 minutes. That's so clunky, that's so awful. It's and you really kicks you in the feels right away. The opening dialogue between Morgan and her conquest for the night, who's trying to set her up, as it were, is truly bad. And and then we're straight into, as soon as that scene is done, we're straight into big music. We're straight into a big epic shot. We're straight into horses. We're straight into slow motion. Then we're straight onto a boat. Then something else happens, and something else happens. And I'm like, well, hang on, what's going on? Oh, was that her dad? Oh, is that her uncle? Not enough introduction of the uncle. Not enough introduction of the dad. Not enough time to set the stakes up, or to get to know the minor characters, or to just see through looks and positioning in shots which pirates are with the uncle and which pirates are with the dad, or de facto Morgan, Gina Davis's character. So we have the two guys that come to fetch her, sure, but this is all the stuff that's missing at the beginning of the film. And I think somebody said somewhere, let's just get straight into action. Let's just get straight into drama. Let's just get straight into big effects and all the rest of it. And they didn't take their time to set up the stakes at the beginning of the movie. We don't know who the dad is. We don't get time. And I'm not talking a lot of time. I'm talking 1 or 2 scenes, tops, to establish the relationship between the uncle, the father, and the daughter. That is what is missing at the beginning of this movie. That is a true story that David Macy's just put in the chat. One of the best bits of trivia I've ever read. Just give me 2 seconds, guys. Just got to do something quickly. Sorry about that, people. I was supposed to have a co-host tonight, but we won't get into that. So these things are actually very important. Lots of people have talked about this. I'm a writer. Setting things up for payoff later and stakes in a dramatic narrative, even in a simple pirate film. Okay, look, they're not trying to make Schindler's List here. It's a fun pirate film, but Star Wars is a fun science fiction film. But it takes time to set up stakes. It sets up Luke's family. It sets up the stakes. When Luke's family are killed, we feel it. We don't really know any of the relationships at the beginning of this film. We're all straight into it. Everything is in a rush with this movie. And I think, they were trying to rush to release it. Now, these scenes may well have existed in an earlier version of the script, because Matthew Modine says on the making of, when he got to set, he was very disappointed that this is not the movie he signed up for. The shooting script was very different. And it was not the film that he hoped it would be, but nevertheless, he was a professional and he soldiered on. And that is a true story about Oliver Reed that I just threw up there. So, so these scenes may well have existed. Okay. Rennie Harlin and Gina Davis spent their own money getting in a third scriptwriter to come and do rewrites during shooting and just before shooting. I don't know what that person contributed to the project, but it feels like very little, in my opinion. So the beginning of the film is where the core of the problem lies for me, because we're not really invested in a lot of the characters. The introduction to Matthew Modine's character is pretty good. We meet him at a ball, and he's there to kind of steal trinkets from widows and ladies, and he's perfectly fine in this role. In fact, I think he's one of the best things in the movie. Him and Frank Langella are both excellent in this film, and I think to some degree they really help the film a lot. Gina Davis is okay. Gina Davis is perfectly fine, but her character needed more setup. She's too much of she's a female pirate. She's really good at everything. She's strong-willed, etc., etc. We don't really see any emotional vulnerability with her. There aren't any scenes with her that are, and again, we're not looking for complex stuff here, but she's just this kind of staunch, strong-willed, can-do woman. And I know she really went all out to do as many of the stunts herself as she could, which is great. But I just feel that her vulnerability is missing. I feel that we don't see enough about the relationship with the father. Again, these scenes are missing. It's no good making a film that, by the way, cost Carolco $147 million. And that's probably, in today's money, is probably coming up to 400 million. And making all these great big action scenes. I'll get on to the action. But not having the appropriate time with character development. All the scenes are too busy as well. There is too much going on. Everything is too busy. There's too much music. The music drowns the film. The score is good, but pull it back a bit. We need some moments of silence. We need some moments to catch our breath. That's very important, even in a movie like this. And I'll tell you now, that's one of the things that the Scarlet Buccaneer did get right. It had some decent character development. Not great, but it had a lot of similar issues to this. But you did get a bit of time, and you got some decent dialogue scenes. Everything here is bit of dialogue, and then boom, we're into the next thing where there's big music, there's big epic shots. Now we're in a chase scene. Little bit of dialogue, big epic music, big epic shots. Now we're in another chase scene. It's just like somebody said, put as much action in the film as possible. That's going to save the movie. I think what they needed to do with this movie was actually take a breath, pull it all back and say, we've got great action. How can we make the plot and the characters really work and really get our audience invested in these people? Let's have a bit more. Matthew Modine's character, who was he before he turned up in Jamaica? The mysterious Shore, if that's his real name. How long has he been on the island? Which boat did he come on? Does he have history with somebody else? I just think it would have actually been nice to have had a scene with him arriving at the port. We had got a wonderful port set in Malta. I'm going to show you those locations in a little bit. And it would have been great to have had a scene with him stepping off a boat. You know, and I know there's some dialogue about which boat did you come in on and all that, but that's all doable. That's not a problem. You know, why is he here? What actually was his objective? I mean, is it just to get money, or is there more to him? And I just feel his character basically had two roles: to be charming and to try and steal everything. But I just, again, let's have some humanity in him. Again, in movies like similar to this that are really good, like Star Wars, even Predator, to pick something closer to this movie, or characters always have humanity. And for me, and Modine is perfectly fine in this role. He does a really good job with what he's got, but what he's got is not enough. So anyway, okay. So these are my issues with the script, that we have an evil guy who's just evil and greedy. We don't know anything about the setup about him and stuff with the family. We have a heroine who is great at everything, but we don't really know much about her backstory other than her dad was a pirate. Here's Frank Langella on the left, and Paul Dillon on the right. You got a number of really great actors, by the way, in supporting roles as pirates. And when I get into the cast in detail, I'll go into them. As the film progresses, we have a number of action sequences. Stunt coordinator was Britain's own Vic Armstrong, exceptionally gifted man. You know, the use of locations, Malta and Thailand, are fantastic. You know, you believe that this could be the islands of the Caribbean, even though, of course, the architecture of the terrain is very different from Thailand. But, you know, it's a movie. As long as it looks different from now, it's fine. All of that stuff works really well. The cinematography in this movie is absolutely fantastic. The production design in this movie is absolutely fantastic. The boats look amazing. The model work of the boats is amazing. The special effects are very good. There's maybe one or two shots that look a bit ropey now, but most of it really good. So, and the supporting players, Jimmy F. Skaggs, who's on the right there. Some people may remember him as the main villain in the low-budget horror film Ghost Town, which is a particular favorite of mine. You know, these are all really good actors. The action, very good action in the movie. You know, and everybody is great in their roles. This British actor in the middle, whose name I've forgotten, I'll look him up in a sec, is great in the film as well. And you've got a number of other British character, sort of, you know, looks like a villain, we'll hire them kind of thing. There's a lot of people in this film that look like pirates. And there's Angus Wright, again, coming to interrogate Matthew Modine. So, going further with the script, it then really is a treasure hunt movie, and that's perfectly fine. We're into the territory of Treasure Island. You know, various rival groups looking for treasure. But I think the ending of the movie is simply not believable in this fantasy world that you've created. Even fantasy worlds, even fantasy historical fiction, which is what this is, have rules. Okay. So if you fire lots of cannonballs at a ship, it will eventually sink. That would be one of the rules in the reality of this world of Cutthroat Island. If you run someone through with a sword, they will die. This is not Ahsoka. In the rules of Cutthroat Island world, people would die if you ran them through with a sword. So, and thus is the case. So there are rules within this. One of those rules is that pirates generally like to steal things, and pirates are generally fairly untrustworthy. And the reason that they steal things is to become rich. So, spoiler alert for anyone who's not wanting spoilers, skip forward about 10 minutes. So, at the end of the movie, when all is well, treasure is recovered, it's on the deck. Morgan does a rather silly speech about, so men, would you rather divide this all up and you could all be rich, you can all buy a house on an island and sit on the veranda and drink tea? Or do you want to come and sail the high seas with me and have more adventures? Because that's what we're destined to do, because we're pirates. And in the world that we've established after everything that they've been through, I'll tell you now, in that world, 50 of those characters would turn around and say, I'll take the veranda with the tea, please. So I just found that ending was a bit like, I really think we didn't need that big speech. And I think, so a few little, what you're going to do with your share? Oh, I don't know. I might stick with the captain, see what she does. Stuff like that would have been a bit more. I get it that it's a fun pirate movie, and I guess that was kind of to wrap it up in a way, but that was particularly naff, I thought. And I thought it diminished what the men had gone through, and survived. And then it's like, well, you're just going to go through it all again, but with somebody else. And don't worry about the treasure. We'll keep it in the hull, Okay. Whatever. So for me, that was another big issue with the script, was the ending. Modine and Davis had pretty good chemistry. Now let's talk about some of the other production issues that this thing had. So apart from, there were clearly a lot of cooks on this. I don't know if Rennie Harlin had final cut. The editing of the film, by the way, is perfectly fine, but I'm sure that there were reams of film and dozens of scenes that were probably shot for this movie that never ended up in the final cut. And I'm sure that there were other scenes, like the ones that Modine talked about, that were in early drafts of the script that were cut. There were probably lots of other character development and things of that nature. Now, in case you don't know, this project originally started with Paul Verhoeven at in the director's chair. And the plan, in addition to Verhoeven co-writing the script and directing it, was it was going to be a much more gory, adult kind of film, more in your lines of RoboCop. It was going to be much more erotic. There would have been more sexual scenes, and you probably would have been looking at an R rating. And Carolco Pictures, understandably, with their neck on the line and thinking maybe if they have a big hit on their hands, this film could save them at the 11th hour, understandably didn't want to go that direction. So Paul Verhoeven was passed on. The script was kept more or less in the original sort of fun Saturday Buccaneer, all family-friendly movie. And then it was passed on to Rennie Harlin. Rennie Harlin had not long married Gina Davis, and he suggested her for the lead. Sorry, guys, I do have a terrible cold. And the other thing was that Gina Davis saw the Cliffhanger movie and actually said to Harlin, God, I'd love to do an action role like that, but don't think anybody will cast me as a action role. They kind of see me as comedy relief, or kind of the housewife turned lawyer type characters. She wanted to do something physical. She fought to get this role. So, and just because you're married to an actress who wants a part, I'll tell you now, that's no guarantee whatsoever that they're going to get that part. So she did do screen tests and all the rest of it for Mario Casar. And obviously Rennie fought hard to get the role, and she got the role. Now, if you think about the other actresses that were around at that time that had bankable, weight to them, you'd be looking at people like Michelle Pfeiffer, maybe Glenn Close, and one or two others, Deborah Winger, perhaps, Sean Young. There's not many people that you could put next to Gina Davis and go, oh, well, they definitely would have done a better job. So I think casting Davis was absolutely fine. It's a shame that I think the problem was that Modine was not perceived as an action actor. He was perceived much more as a stage actor and as a serious actor who did a lot of art house films. So maybe people didn't perceive him in that kind of leading man hunk role. I think he's perfectly fine in the role. I think he does the part justice. But would you believe that people like Tom Cruise were asked? Michael Douglas, of course, as I said earlier, was supposed to do the role. Now, Gina Davis didn't want to be the lead in this movie. She didn't want to have to carry the movie. She felt that was too much on her shoulders. She wanted an actor in the other role that was bigger than her. Whether they would have got that person if they had written the script more in that actor's favor or not, we'll never know, because I'm not privy to those things. So we then come to the film is cast. We come to filming, and the first section of the movie was shot at the Malta film studios, and you can see places like Valletta in the background of some shots in the movie. Now, this is Malta Film Studios. I have been there myself, and they have the biggest water tank in the world for this kind of thing. And there's some amazing stuff about the making of. So this is the backlot of Malta Film Studios, where they still have the model of the Titanic from Raise the Titanic. There it is. You can see how big it is. Look at that. It's pretty much a wreck now, but it is still there. I've got photographs of it, actually. And you've got a number of other model ships from other movies sitting around on this location. Here's the tank, empty at this time. So they had two full-size ships built in there. They've got a second smaller tank here. Actually, the ships may well have been in this tank. I don't know which one they were, I'll be honest. This was originally Fort Ranella, which was a British artillery battery that guarded the gateway into the harbour of Valletta. Now, all of this section, including all of this part of the fort, is all owned by Malta Film Studios. It's also protected. This section of buildings here with this long courtyard and so on, this is where most of Gladiator was filmed. So all of those scenes with Maximus coming back into Rome and stuff like that was all filmed here. And then if you look at the lower sections where you can see that they've got the docks and stuff like that, that's where the chase sequence would have been filmed for pirates with, the explosions going off and that sort of thing. They may well have filmed that on a different section of the island. It's possible they could have shot that on the other side of Valletta in this area where quite a lot of filming has been done in the past. But I don't think so, because all the old buildings are all here. You've got several shots that were done in the bay where you see the Valletta kind of architecture on the skyline. It's very distinguishable. So Malta's definitely an island / country worth visiting. And I did enjoy my time there, particularly the tour around the film studios. And I'm very grateful to the lady who arranged that for me. And I met the head of the studio while I was there. So again, I'll just extend my thanks to the Malta Film Commission for showing me around when I went. But the majority of the filming was done in the tanks. And you will see on the making of Cutthroat Island, you'll see both of the big ships there. And this shot, which I'll put back up, is the two ships side by side in the tank. Now, that they did do model work in this movie. It's not impossible that shot's actually a model. So that could be one of the model work shots. But they did have 2 full-size ships, and they had 1 full-size ship in Thailand. So for the work. Now, the second thing that went wrong with the production, so probably not really the second thing, the next thing was, first of all, Harlin wasn't happy with the sets which they'd gone ahead and built before he arrived, and they built them incorrectly, not according to his specifications. He demanded them to be rebuilt in the style that he had envisaged. That set the production back, cost it time and money. We can't really weigh up the merits of that decision because I don't have photographs of the old set and the new one to compare it with, nor the scenes which would have been impacted. So I can't say if that was a good decision. It was clearly his decision. But more, they started off by filming the sequence in the storm. The sequence in the storm in the movie, in my opinion, lasts too long, slows the film down terribly, and could have been at least half the running time. Too much happens in that storm. I think that storm should have been a lot quicker. It's quite confusing what happens in the storm. A betrayal takes place. Some people have to come off the boat. There's a load of stuff that happens in it that to me personally doesn't make sense. And then later on, there's a lot of dynamics in the film that don't add up. Like the numbers of pirates that are for Morgan on her own ship and the numbers who rebel against her, and then the numbers of pirates that Dog has on his ship are completely inconsistent all the way through the film. And those things do kind of bother me a little bit because, again, you're trying to set up stakes. And when you're trying to set up stakes and the setting up of the stakes is inconsistent, that is a problem for a script. It is a problem. At the end of the movie, they say that Dog's forces outnumber them substantially and also outguns them. In other words, he's got the bigger ship with the more guns. So when the final battle happens, apart from the fact that our good guys are on one ship and our bad guys are on the bigger, more powerful ship with lots more guns on the ship, there's really no reason why, apart from a couple of heroic actions from Modine and Davis, as to why Dog shouldn't win that battle. And I'm not really convinced that they should have won it based on everything we've been told up to that point. Why did we have to be told that he had more crew? It looks to me like he's got about the same number of pirates as the others. It should have just been, yeah, he's got a slightly more powerful ship, but my guys can fight as well as his, and, you know, we're going to win the day. Because why? Because we've got more at stakes, because we're fighting for more than just treasure. We're fighting for each other. A line like that, as cheesy as it is, was missing from the film. And that's the sort of thing we needed, those emotional connections between why these people are fighting for Morgan over this other guy. It seems that I know people switch sides willy-nilly in these kinds of situations, but it's so inconsistent, you know, and the motivation just doesn't seem to be there for people to fight for one side or the other. It's just whoever. So I had a big problem with that. So they filmed this storm sequence, which requires a lot of water. They ran out of water because they filmed so much. Everybody's got colds. And then they started bringing in the water from the Valletta water supply. And unfortunately, the pipe to that had broken and raw sewage was coming into it. So the actors, when they were acting this scene in the storm, were also, there was raw sewage in the water. So nearly all of them got ill, including Gina Davis. And so everybody was like super sick for those first 2 weeks of filming. So they also got behind because of that. So that was another thing that happened that went wrong early on. Okay, so moving on. And by the way, if any of my regulars are watching, I see a few of you in the chat there. Thank you for popping in. My backup co-host has arrived. I was just about to say you're welcome to drop on. Fortunately, Rennie is here. Hello.
Hey, Lance.
That's great. Now I've got someone who can rabbit on when occasionally I need to dash out to the loo.
I'll try to vamp as best I can.
So, welcome, Rennie. Thank you. Is this the first time you've been on my channel?
No, I think it's the second.
Yeah, it was
Or is
quite
it
a
the
while
third?
ago. So
Yeah,
for
it's been a little bit.
those people that haven't met Rennie, like myself, she's one of the moderators for the Critical Drinker. And we have a lot of fun doing that for our good pal. But
Yeah,
Rennie,
he's a very nice guy, and I'm happy to help whenever I can. He's always
absolutely
appreciative and never expectant.
But even better than that, Rennie and I have actually met and had pizza together in person.
That's true.
So that makes us BBFF, which is automatically one class above other YouTubers because we've met in person. So, yeah, thanks a lot for jumping in because Dark Hour was going to be on with me. He's kind of got a bit of a emergency going on at home. And
yeah, I just heard from him. I'm like,
yeah.
oh no. So yeah, hope all's well with him.
And he watched the film this afternoon, especially.
Oh, he's such a sweetie, but he's got a lot.
Yeah,
to take care of.
We don't need to get into that. So, because don't forget, we are live on YouTube right now.
That's right.
Let's get back to Cutthroat Island. So, my understanding is that you may have seen the film once a really long time ago.
Yes. So I don't really remember much, if anything at all. I just know I want to say Gina Davis is in it, if I remember right, but that's about it.
She is. Gina Davis is in it wearing a ruffled shirt that's almost as curly as her hair. So what I'm doing at the minute is I'm talking about the problems that the production's had, and the big issue for me and a lot of other people was the script of the film. And one of the things I pointed out at the very beginning is there's almost no setup before we're straight into these characters are doing this, and then we're straight into a chase. And by the way, the music in this film, as good as it is, saturates and drowns the movie. There's almost no scenes with no music. So even if Matthew Modine has suddenly stopped to pause to look at a map when he's in a wood, the score is like dun 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 dun, and he's just kind of walking around, and it's like, guys, rein it in at this point. Maybe no music for this for 30 seconds here. So there's a lot of compensating going on in the film for the fact that the script is either clearly missing scenes that they didn't shoot, or scenes that they didn't consider that they needed. And it does feel a lot like, quick, chuck in that chase scene here, make the music bigger here. There's a lot of that going on because the big setup at the beginning is that her father is killed by her uncle. But the moment that we're introduced to the uncle is the scene where he kills the dad. So we've had no scene that sets up the relationship between Davis, Morgan, and her uncle and her dad. We've had no scene to establish that the uncle's a bit of a wrong, and we only need a 30-second scene. We don't need a lot, but we're just straight into that murder and her trying to save the dad, and then we're told about the treasure map. There's no setup. We don't even really properly see the dad. The scene is in the dark. He's thrown over the boat. So it's like, what's
Very
going
rushed.
on?
Yeah.
Potato Revan, thank you for popping in, dude. I don't know Potato Revan. I can't remember them being in the chat.
He is a friend of mine, a very sweet guy, Irish, but we still love him. So thank you for popping in, Tater.
I love you even more because you're Irish. Thank you for coming in, Potato. And I mean, that's definitely a connection with Ireland potatoes. Okie Native asks what kind of pizza we had. It was huge and it was nice. I can't remember much beyond that. I didn't have pineapple on it though. Can't tell you that.
Thank goodness you're not a heathen.
I mean, I can go pineapple, but I choose not to. I choose. That's an 80s. Pineapple. That's an 80s thing. So I've been talking about the production problems that they've been having, and one of them was that they shot there's a big sequence with a storm about halfway through the movie that goes on way too long. And they shot that at Malta Film Studios, which is also where they shot the big battle. at the end, and some of the other stuff with the boats, and also the harbour scene. And that's here, which I've actually visited and do have pictures of. In fact, I wish I'd loaded those up so you could actually see the pictures, because when I was there, they actually had a set in the tank. The woman was showing me around and said, "Don't take pictures of the set." And I was like, no, of course not. Desperately trying to angle my phone to take a photo of this set in this tank on the right here. But here you can see, if you zoom in, you see these wrecks of these boats. These are all model boats from movies. So I think this one here is the 55 scale model of the Titanic from Raise the Titanic. This boat right here. Nice. And actually the one on the left, up here, this picture here, that is, I believe, one of the boats that was used in Cutthroat Island. And that's it. That's cool. That's it on a pair of runners, and it would of course be pushed into the tank and set up. Yeah, they had two of those. And I did see a number of these ships, these carcasses of ships from other movies that were just kind of off to one side. That's a great photo of the two tanks side by side. So I'm pretty sure the tank on the right is the one that they used for the battle scene with the ships. And the way that they've designed these is so that when the cameras are level with the ground, you see the horizon, and of course you've got the sea behind, so you've got the horizon of the sea, and it goes on for miles. Malta Film Studios, yeah, great place. This section here, you see those buildings and how Roman they look.
Yeah,
that's where loads of the stuff for Gladiator was filmed, where he's coming into Rome, coming into the gates of Rome and all that stuff. That's where that was shot. So there you go, there's another shot of one of the carcasses, one of the ships. So yeah, very it's very busy film studios. It's used quite a lot. Back in 95, wasn't the big thriving film production studio that it is now. But yeah, so there you go. That's where it is in Malta, just across from Valletta Harbour, which is the capital of the island of Malta, and this is the city of Valletta, and this is the section of the city that is Valletta. Sorry. You've got a number of old historic forts on every section of the harbour. You see, there's one here, one over here, and then you've got one here, which is called Saint Elmo. No connection to the movie.
Thank goodness.
No, indeed. And I mean, there's lots of these kinds of buildings. You see that building there, that's been used in a lot of movies as well. So this is why people like to shoot in Malta, because it's got such a conflagration of different architecture, even in the regular streets, that it can double for so many different places in the world, because you've got a melting pot of cultures there. But yeah, the main film studio is all on the right side here. So I was just talking just before you came on about how all the cast got dysentery because when they were filming the storm sequence, a sewage pipe broke and raw sewage went into the water tank that we were just looking at. Yeah. So now this still here. Do you think these are full size, or do you think these ships are models?
Let's see.
What do you reckon?
I would probably say models or like miniatures.
I think they are probably model. That's probably model work in this shot. I mean, I might be wrong, because you could still have got that shot with the tank for sure. You can kind of see the concave of the tank setup, but the miniature shots, which are all edited into the same scene, were all shot at Pinewood Film Studios in the water tank there. And the reason for that was that they had a very, very good miniatures unit at Pinewood that was, you you had kind of veterans that had worked on things like Thunderbirds and that sort of stuff. So you had those kind of the people that had worked under Derek Meddings, who probably is one of the best miniatures builders in the business at the time. And the big problem with using miniatures in films, and I love miniatures, is not only do they have to look like the real thing, you have to know how to light and shoot them. Because you've got to light and shoot miniatures slightly differently. The angles that you use are very important, stuff like that. They may well be miniatures, but I think they look great regardless. So one of the things I said that's the plus points about this film, and there are many things to praise it for. The production design is first class. The model work is good. The action is well done. And you know, the big action scene at the end is a lot of fun. Now, do you recognize this actor? This is Rex Linn, who has been in loads of stuff, but he was one of the main bad guys in Cliffhanger, which was also directed by Rennie Harlin.
Oh,
so
okay.
Don't know if I
don't recognize him. It's been a while since I've seen Cliffhanger though, so that may be why it's not ringing a bell.
Jim D, good to see you, mate. Not seen you for a while. He's saying no crappy CGI either. That is true, my friend. There is none. By the way, Jim, I'll be doing my gaming session, I think, on Tuesday night. If you want to jump on the Lone Wolf, I'll be on Tuesday night with that. So, just going to go through the stills here. Now, this guy, Christopher Masterson, on the right, I have found him and I've asked him to come on the channel. He plays a major character. He's the youngest member of the cast. He's like the cabin boy. And he's now a DJ. So he's a DJ that does these big gigs all over the world. But I'm going to see if I can get him to come on the channel to talk about Cutthroat Island. So nice. You never know. You never know. He might come on. So okay. So let's look at that early poster for the film when they were touting it round to get the finance. Can you see what's wrong with that poster? Well, Michael Douglas is in the film.
Yeah, duh.
Because when they were trawling for finance, Michael Douglas was attached to play the Matthew Modine role.
Okay, and then he dropped out.
He dropped out because he thought the script. He took the role on the understanding that he and Gina Davis would have equal screen time, and that, you know, he was the lead. And when he read the shooting script, he said no, thank you, and he left. And Rennie Harlin went to see him and tried to assure him. There's some great stuff about all of that. With Rennie Harlin is actually quite he's very forthcoming about the movie, and he doesn't apologize or try and pretend it's better than it is. And he talks very candidly about the things that went wrong on the new Blu Ray extras, why they went wrong, and so on. So I think also he was a lot younger when he made it, of course. And, you know, check out those trousers on the monkey. Look at that.
I mean, you know, got to cover up all the naughty bits.
Now, this is a great photo. I'm glad I searched for this. So, as you can see, if you look in the background, that is Valletta in the background there. So actually, now that we've got this, I can tell you where this shot was done. This shot. See, this is Valletta here. So if it was on the harbour side, it would have been around here somewhere. With all of that, because there's that's the iconic church in the background, and if you look at the top of that picture, you can just see the beginnings of that up the top there. So yeah, that would have been downstream a bit, and might have actually been around, might have even been on this corner here where the Malta Canoe Federation is currently located. Now, don't forget, this is in 1995. So you see this building and these cars that are parked and stuff. All of this stuff here, because these buildings look quite modern. Malta waterfront apartments, they probably weren't even there. So all of that stuff probably wasn't even there. It's all, you know, a lot of it will have changed in this period. But interesting to note that they filmed that on the other side. So just so that they could get that backdrop behind, because you can see in that photo how that stuff looks. So it just gives you, basically, it gives you a free set, effectively. So yeah, that would have been filmed. There you go. See where the Malta Canoe Federation is. That would have been filmed here. And the church that you can see in the background is this one here. So I forget what it's called. Basilica of Our Lady, Mount Carmel. That's it, Mount Carmel. So yeah, Valletta is very beautiful, very touristy, but very beautiful. It's got so many good locations. When we were walking around Valletta, you'll see there's kind of like a drawbridge here that goes over a really big trench, effectively like a moat. And even when I visited it, just here, and that's where you're going into the main city over there. Most of this was all blocked off for filming, and they had dressed it all up, and so there was even filming going on at the time when I went there. All right, let's get into the cast for Cutthroat Island to talk about who was good, who was great, and who was
It was me.
It was me. I have to say, most of the cast, don't forget, you know, bad dialogue is not the fault of the cast. And, you know, not everybody's Sean Connery and can rewrite their dialogue. So, because the film looks great. I mean, you can see from the shots, everything looks good. You know, and the original cinematographer on the film, he broke his leg in the first couple of weeks. When he was walking across when they were walking to the tank, he misstepped. They were doing a night shoot, and he fell down a hole, and broke his leg. So he had to be replaced. Yeah. So they lost their DOP in their first 2 weeks of filming on Malta as well. So that was another thing that went wrong. So if we go to our cast list. It's always quite fun when I realise that there's somebody I know in the film, because that seems to happen quite a lot. So Geena Davis, she's perfectly fine. Matthew Modine, I think, does a very good job to cover Michael Douglas. You took a big intake of breath there. Do you want to say something?
No, sorry.
Okay. The standout for me is Frank Langella. Who recently people have tried to cancel him very unjustly, in my opinion. A fine actor. I've just read his book, by the way. It's absolutely fantastic. It's available on Amazon if people haven't read it. And I mean, it's incredible the range of actors that he's worked with. You know, he's had lunch with the Kennedys, you know, when they were both still alive. Do you know what I mean? What a history he's had. Maury Chaikin, who sadly is no longer with us, people will recognize as a jobbing character actor. He's played villains in all kinds of movies. He played that crazy guy in Dances with Wolves that Kevin Costner comes to meet at the very beginning of the movie when he asks to be relocated out west. He's just done a lot of kind of strange characters. He's even got a bit part in War Games with Matthew Broderick.
I was going to say, that's Matthew Broderick, isn't it?
Yeah, I do love that movie. I saw that twice.
I went into it thinking one thing, and it was about something completely different. And being a small child at the time, I'm like, oh.
Was that a good thing?
No, not really. But it's very interesting. I'll give it that much.
Okay. Melvin Deeply is saying, does anyone remember the Scarlet Buccaneer with Robert Shaw? Yes, I do, mate. I talked about it extensively at the beginning, and here's the Blu Ray. But it's a German Blu Ray because that was all I could get. Der Scarlet Pirate. Yeah. So I don't know if that's how you pronounce it in German. My apologies to any Germans that may have been listening. So, yeah. And the guys who wrote this in the making of. They referenced the Scarlet Buccaneer, and when I saw it, I did think this scene was in the Scarlet Buccaneer. This scene was in the Scarlet Buccaneer. So this character was in the Scarlet Buccaneer. It's, James Earl Jones is in the Scarlet Buccaneer as the sidekick. And Gina Davis also has a black Jamaican sidekick played by Stan Shaw, who's a fine actor. You must recognize him. He's been in absolutely everything. Do you remember him in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle? Wasn't he in that?
I haven't seen that in a while, but I have seen it.
Pretty sure he was in that. And then, yeah, I mean, he's just done a lot of like supporting character actor roles. There he is in Harlem Nights with the late Richard Pryor. He's a great actor. He's still around. Born in 52, but he's still going. So yeah, he's fine in the film. He's kind of wasted. His role is not really that significant. I kind of wish he got to do a bit more. Patrick Malderhyde is a British character actor who has played things like officers in the Empire and Empire Strikes Back, lots of detectives, policemen, this kind of thing. I've seen him on stage. He's a fantastic actor. He plays a lot of villains, and he plays the villain in this. Then you have, this is Rex Linn, who was in Cliffhanger. But I mean, he's a jobbing character actor. He's got 108 credits on IMDb. He's just done Big Sky, 13 episodes of that. Young Sheldon, 24 episodes. He plays the principal in Young Sheldon, if anybody watches that. He's a great actor. He's in Better Call Saul. He's good in everything he's in. Really tall guy. I really like him. Clearly, Rennie Harlin and him got on because I think he wrote the role especially for Rex Linn. And it's funny because when I first saw him, I didn't recognize him because he's got a tattooed face, Then you've got loads of other character actors. Like Harris Yulin, okay, plays Gina Davis's dad, right? Harris Yulin. This is a fantastic actor. There's no scene with him where they just have normal dialogue. It's just like dad and he gets killed. That's it. What I don't understand. I mean, I'm sure that scene must have been in the script. A lot of people will remember him in Scarface in this scene, of course. But, where was that scene? Why didn't we get the scene with the dad? Just a normal scene with, them talking about pirate stuff. And, I know it hasn't got action and a chase with a carriage, but establishing these character relationships as quickly as possible in a film of this type, especially if you're going to kill the guy off in the next scene, is really important. It's just basic writing 101. And a lot of the basic writing 101 stuff was missing from this movie. And that's one of the reasons why the script is so bad. Rennie, do you remember this guy? Jimmy F. Skaggs, sadly passed away now, 2004. Played a lot of bad guys.
His face looks familiar, but
yeah, I mean, he's a jobbing character actor. He's not a name you're going to know. Here he is in Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
He did a really cool low budget horror film called Ghost Town, which came out in the 70s. I really like it, actually. I might do a little video about that at some point. He was the main villain in that. I think that came out around 88, something like that. I'm just having a quick look, see if I can find it. There we go. Yeah, Devlin. This is Ghost Town. About a cowboy that kind of goes back in time and gets stranded in a ghost town in the past, and all the characters in the town are undead.
Lord.
It's cool, but I like it. I think it's a great little film. Anyway, he's one of the pirates. You've got a lot of actors like him in the supporting cast roles who've done sort of a lot of work. and you'd know them from other things. British actors, Angus Wright, he's just done Dreaming Whilst Black, plays a kind of dodgy film producer in that. He was also in Rogue One. You know, he's a jobbing British actor. I really like him. I think he should be in more stuff. Ken Bones is a jobbing British actor who's done a ton of stuff that you definitely would have seen him in. You know, he's been in things like Troy and this kind of thing. He's always playing scary villains like this type of guy, you know. So because he's got that face, you know, he's got that face of an evil warlord.
Yeah, some people are just born with evil looking faces.
Yeah, tell me about it. So some of the other people that it's interesting to note that are in here. Simon Atherton is the guy who used to own Bapty. Bapty is the biggest firearms company for film and production in the British film industry. They provided all the weapons for Band of Brothers. Also in the film, you had a couple of other people who were in really small roles. One of them was Raman Tikaram, who went on to become a very, very successful actor. Has done a number of big films, including Jupiter Ascending. He's done a lot of British dramas. He's just a pirate in this. So he's somebody who would have gone out to Thailand for like 10 weeks, you know, this kind of thing. Richard Leaf is the actor who made the short film. Matthew Modine made a short film whilst on set. Is that a picture of him with... Oh, that's Tamsin Gregg. Okay, good. I thought that was a picture of him with somebody quite notorious for a moment. So I'm glad that was Tamsin Gregg. Yeah, Richard Leaf does the commentary with Matthew Modine. The short film is included on the Blu Ray. So that's really cool. Yeah, and Jim Tikaram was in This Life. That's right, mate. Bang on. So Michael Douglas turned it down. He had a very tight window to film, and he turned it down partly because of the window and also because he just felt the script. Yeah, he had issues with the script, and he was right. The script had a lot of issues. We don't know which version of the script he got to see, of course, but yeah. So, you know, there's your cast. A couple of the other people that were in the... I don't know if you ever watched Sharp with Sean Bean, but Derek O'Malley has a really tiny role in this as a pirate who basically gets killed and he's off script and he's done. You know, he's got one scene and he's done. But he's a great actor. I've never seen him on stage, and I've heard he's very good on stage. So hopefully that can still happen. Anyway, so that's the cast of Cutthroat Island. So yeah, I mean, okay, when you watch it now, how does it hold up? The script has all the same problems. If anything, I would say that because even though there's a lot of stuff coming out right now that's awful, I think we've been spoilt by, you know, there's a lot of stuff in the late 90s and the early 2000s and the mid 2000s, both television and movies that are very good. I mean, did you watch Black Sails? Don't know if you've seen any of that.
I haven't seen that as of yet. I heard it's really good.
Yeah.
But I have not seen it. But you know, you have to remember in the 90s, we just didn't have the effects available that we have nowadays. And
well,
you know,
the effects in this film are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, sure, they would have done a lot of stuff with CGI to save money, because the big expenses on this were, I mean, these two ships were built, you know, for this tank, this battle. And then and then they completely blew one of them up. They totally blew it up, which is why you've only got one hull sitting on the side there nowadays. But the effects weren't the issue. We had good script writers back in 1995. The biggest problem with this movie for me is the script. You know, and then I think also that because some of the dialogue is so bad, I think that the actors do their best with what they've been given, but you can only do so much.
You can only do so much with bad writing. I mean, yes, you can act the hell out of it, but I mean, some actors can't ad lib, or they can't, kind of, just tweak it or make it better. They just don't have that capability. So, I mean,
yeah,
you do what you can.
I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look at this still, you can actually see that in the middle of that shot, that is a guy on fire flying through the air. Now that's probably not a real person. It's probably a dummy. But
I would hope so.
But if you look, you can see it's actually a body. And they did have quite a few shots of people getting blown up. I mean, I don't regret buying the Blu Ray. There's a lot about this movie that's really fun, and I think this is a great movie for kids now, because a kid can watch this and they don't need to have any attention span to concentrate on this movie whatsoever, because there's not really much of a plot anyway, and they'll enjoy the action, and they'll probably fall asleep in the middle during the storm sequence, which is way too long. But the climactic battle is, it's a lot of fun. There are some issues with it, like, every time Matthew Modine or Gina Davis is in a shot, suddenly they're on a pulley and flying from one ship to the other whilst firing a gun at the same time, and very much doing this kind of thing that she's doing in this shot here. But one of the funny things on the making of is Matthew Modine apparently was being constantly ordered off the boat. The first AD would be, Mr. Modine, would you get off the ship, please? We do not have insurance for you to be on the ship, Mr. Modine. And so during any of the battle stuff, he wasn't insured to be in harm's way. Wow. And he kept doing things like hiding under canvases, and because he wanted to be on the boat. He wanted to be in the midst of the mayhem, So yeah, but hey, there we go. Do you know how much money this lost at the box office?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure, but Jim D's saying that it lost a considerable amount in the chat.
Yeah, it was 147 million. It says it's amazing that the studios went ahead and financed Pirates of the Caribbean and Master of the Commander. Now, well, yes, but Pirates of the Caribbean has actually got, the first film especially, has got a good script. And when you consider that it's a movie about a ride at Disney,
Yeah.
But it has got a good script. It's got a good script. It's fun. This movie, tonally, it knows what it is, but it doesn't quite fully commit to being that thing. So it can't be too violent, which means that the action can only go so far, and that's okay with a film like this. This is fine. I mean, it's it's big. It's a kids action film. It's big characters, big villains, silliness. There you go. There's Rex Lynn with his tattoo on his face. But there's a lot of stuff in it that just doesn't work very well. And I think the problem with that is that we just don't. There's not enough time given for anything to breathe. It's all big, over the top, loud music. There needs to be a bit more emotion. A lot of the characters are very two-dimensional. Matthew Modine's character is a rogue who likes stealing stuff and is charming. That's it. There's nothing more to him than that. Gina Davis's character is the daughter of a pirate, and she's very good at pirate stuff. That's it. There's nothing more to her than that. That's her character. There's no even miniature emotional threads. Just something else, Where's the scenes that show her vulnerability?
Well, you said this was made to be a kids movie, right? Maybe it was all about, like, just more of the fun and entertaining aspect rather than giving it a whole lot of depth.
Yeah, but you say that, but I mentioned this before you came on. Star Wars is a kids film. Luke has an emotional journey. There are several scenes where we see he's conflicted. There are several scenes where he feels vulnerable. He's not.
Okay, but who said that Star Wars is a kids movie? Was it Lucas or was it Disney?
It was perceived as a kids movie when it was released. It was
Okay,
a film
'cause I
that
was like-
children went to see in droves. But this is what I'm saying: is you can, where a kids movie is concerned, you can have that cake and eat it. And Star Wars is an example of that, in my opinion. And
I mean,
I'm not saying this should have been The Godfather,
No, okay, good. So
just to be clear.
I do watch some silly kid stuff, and you have silly things like Madagascar or whatnot. But yeah, it's just a fun movie. It doesn't have to make a whole lot of sense or have a lot of depth. But I get what you're saying.
I just think a little bit more character development. I was talking about how I would fix this movie earlier, and I would have done a pre-title sequence. I would have had a scene with Davis, Frank Langella, and Harris Yulin doing like some sort of family meeting where there's a disagreement about how this pirate crew is going to go forward in life, and we see those divides, and then he does his thing. So when Davis goes and she gets set up at the beginning of the movie, she's been set up. The uncle, Frank Langella's character, would have been behind that setup. We don't actually know who is because we're never told. But the movie opens with that setup. It's like, who is this person? Who is she? Who are these people coming to rescue her? We don't know any of these things. And all of the dialogue that happens in the first 10 minutes is all exposition at its worst. Oh, yes, I'm so-and-so, and we're going to do that thing. It's all like that. And, some of it is winsomely bad. There's some dialogue later on that's okay, but the British have fun with their roles. Matthew Modine acquits himself pretty well. Frank Langella is acting like he's in a different movie, and by that I mean a better one. His class of acting is leagues above.
I was gonna say he's a great actor. It's probably just something that comes natural to him.
I think so. Yeah, but it's some people said Geena Davis wasn't ready for this film, or maybe she wasn't good enough. I would disagree with those things. Absolutely disagree. She's a fine actress. She's perfectly fine in the part. Her standard of acting is not the problem in this film. The problem is the script, and she just isn't given enough to do. And I think there's too many characters as well. They could have done with cutting down some of the characters. There's a few too many turncoats. We've got a guy in Morgan's crew who turns on her. The crew rebel against her. And then, she comes back and she captures her ship. How come all these people are suddenly prepared to follow her again when only a couple of scenes earlier they just chucked her overboard? Just because she kills the ringleader, I don't buy it. So they kind of set up certain things and then they break the rules and don't really follow through with them. So the script just has lots and lots and lots of problems. And it could have done with, a few characters less would have helped. There's this guy that kind of betrays them, which is Macy Chaikin's character. He really just doesn't even need to be in the movie. His presence is kind of pointless, to be honest. So I don't really know. That's an interesting poster for Japan, by the looks of it. I don't really know, why he's in it. They could have got rid of him quite easily.
Maybe just to have a vaudeville villain, so to speak.
Yeah, he is. That's a good description for his character. He is a bit of a vaudeville villain in the film. So what would I give this out of 10 on IMDb now? That's the question. At the minute, I think it's got like a 5 rating, 5.5.
Ow, ouch.
Somebody can. I just don't want to take down my current still. Someone can
Let me
confirm
take
that.
a look. I'll tell you what it says here. If I can get it to come up without the pop-ups. 5.7 out of 10.
Let me have a quick wee while you reminisce and think what you would give it out of 10.
All right, chat. So I haven't seen this movie since I was a wee child. What would you give this movie out of 10? IMDb currently has it at 5.7. So just do me a favor and put in the chat what you would give this or what you would rate it out of 10. To give Lance something to look at when he gets back.
Well, for me, anything that's thank you for filling in. And by the way, people in chat, please chip in. What would you give on IMDb? What would you give? I nearly said Pirates of the Caribbean then. What would you give Cutthroat Island 1995 out of 10? Now, if you do like pirate films and you are a Blu Ray collector, I would definitely say get the anniversary edition. The extras on it are fantastic. Matthew Modine's short film, The Eki Pirate, is a lot of fun and is worth seeing. The new commentaries are really eye-opening. I quite felt for Rennie Harlin. I kind of wanted to give him a hug when I was, watching him being interviewed, and it's clear that it really took it out of him. And I've worked on pre-production for 3 years on a film that didn't happen, that completely destroyed my life, and I didn't even get to set. So, I can completely relate to those kinds of journeys. Don't forget, everybody went into this film wanting it to be amazing. No one sets out to make a shit film unless you're literally with a C-list company of, whatever, who are just banging out something for the buck to stick on a garage spinner somewhere. But everybody wanted this film to be amazing, and there are things about it that are amazing, including the sequence that's in the shot right now. It's an amazing sequence, but it's got a terrible script, absolutely terrible script. So out of 10, I have to knock off 4 straight away for that script. So for me, it can't be higher than a 6. I think actually David Macy sums it up really well here. 6 out of 10 from me. Not terrible, not great, but great fun. I would agree with that. You can watch this film and wince at the stuff about it that's no good, but enjoy the performances, particularly of the villains. And you can you can enjoy the romp and the big bluster, and also suddenly realize how annoying the music is that's in the film nearly all the time in every scene.
Lance's favorite part of the film, folks.
I liked it. I like the music, but I like moments of pause in the film. Are important. And I mean, that's what this film needed at times. It needed time to breathe. It needed moments where there were no music and all the rest of it. Let's look at what Jim D has mentioned. Waterworld came out the same year. I think it did. I think it was 90. Yeah, I think it was 95. I think it was 95, maybe 96.
I really did not like that movie. Yeah, I remember seeing it way back in the day. It was
I could do a whole nother stream on that. That Waterworld is a film where there's stuff about it I really like, and there's stuff about it that really annoys me. The thing that they did wrong with that movie is that movie, the ending of that movie should have been the attack on the atoll, which happens about a third of the way in. It's the biggest and best action sequence in the entire film,
But
the
it
problem,
cost so much money, and
well,
it
that I
just did
mean,
not make anything.
yeah, I know, and they shouldn't have shot it out at sea. They should have just built that set partly in a water tank, and maybe had a section of it that they towed out to sea or whatever. But they could have built that in the water tank in Malta. That's it. But not done the same shots. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So hey ho, but these days just CGI the whole thing. It's fine.
Yeah. We'll
It'll
get
be
you your
fine.
CG ocean.
CG ocean, yeah. Green screen, CG
Yeah.
water.
That's right.
Just use the beach set from the Barbie movie. It's all good. Let's do beach. Yeah. So, but look, there's a lot to enjoy in this movie. Frank Langella, Matthew Modine, even Gina Davis is quite endearing in the film. I'm not watching the film and going, God, this performance from Davis is terrible. In fact, I didn't think that at all at any point. So let's just have a look. A couple of other people, 7 out of 10. Irene Jobson has said Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. I'm not sure if that's what she thinks of the movie, but RRTNZ has said 6 out of 10. Not well written, but acted with a lot of joy. It's fun. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, John Debney's score is good. It's just in the film way too much. Way too much.
Looks like Melvin Deeply said 5.5 out of 10.
He did, yeah. I don't worry, I had spotted him. 5.5 out of 10. Yeah, so good stuff. Well, thanks people for popping on and joining me. Going to wrap it up in a sec. Rennie, you're not doing regular stuff on your channel at the moment, are you? You're just kind of...
No, I feature other channels on mine, or I basically stayed on mine, is featured on or whatnot. So I don't really have anything on mine. That doesn't mean I'm not going to. But at the time being...
But
yeah.
Rennie has a life right now. She has a life, and she's going to make the most of, normal stuff, like going out for pizza and that kind of thing.
Yeah, like... I just got home from having lunch and ice cream with the hubby when I hopped on. So
fantastic, love it. I'm going to watch the rest of The Departed when I come off of this stream, because I am on Cannoli Sasquatch's channel on Monday night. I think along with some of the gang, Mrs. Sasquatch, probably uninspired reviewer, and a few others.
He's a wonderful.
I love him. It's so funny because
sweetheart.
He's a 250-year-old man in a 19-year-old's body, which is really strange.
Pretty true.
And me and him have had many long, detailed discussions about that. No, I've talked to him offline and on camera, and we've had a really good chat. And I have a lot of good chats with Uninspired. Lovely guy. So
you can catch me on the Uninspired Hour or so. We're going to talk about Shaun of the Dead on the 28th of October.
I need to be on that, because that's all filmed like within hundreds of yards of here.
And then
I've got loads of stories about that. Is that Uninspired's channels doing that?
I'm not sure if it's going to be on Dark Hours or Uninspired, but I love Shaun of the Dead, and the Cornetto trilogy is close to my heart.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I do love those. And of course, you guys know you can catch me on Mr. Brown Alliance. For the most part, I have been back on Sundays, but life has just been getting a bit hectic, which is why I took some time off for a bit. So
yes. Well, no, that's all understandable. Okay, well, what have I got coming up next? So next Saturday, this time next week, I am going to be doing another Best of British. I'm doing this Best of British drama series stuff now, and I'm going to be talking about the best British drama series, in my opinion, and that is just my opinion before anybody butts in, ever made, which is called Our Friends in the North. And here it is. And this is the TV show which Rennie hasn't seen, but she will be watching during this week. And she can join me next week to discuss what she, as an American, thinks of this show. So if you look here, this launched the careers of Christopher Eccleston, first Doctor Who in the reboot, Daniel Craig, James Bond, Mark Strong, mostly seen without hair these days, and Gina McKee. And it's the story of four friends in the 60s, and one of them's just got back from the civil rights marches in America, and they're all trying to work out what they're going to do with their life. And it's how historical events of that time pull them in and change the directions of their lives forever. Now, if I open this box set, which I think I can do, I'm going to show you something that's really interesting about this. So here's shots of the various characters at different times in the show. So this is like Christopher Eccleston's character, Nicky Hutchins, who's a photographer in the 70s, and Gina McKee, who's his childhood sweetheart. Daniel Craig plays a character called Geordie Peacock. And then there's Mark Strong, who plays his best mate, Tosca. And originally they were both going to be in a band together. What's great about the movie, the TV show, is every episode is feature film length. And every episode is set in a different time period. So what happens is it starts in the 60s and it finishes in 95. So as you go through the story, the fashions and everything change. And one of them goes to live down in London, and you see the repercussions of him living in Soho. There's Malcolm McDowell. So you've got a lot of British actors playing supporting roles in this who are quite well known. My friend Danny Webb is in it. He talks about his role in it on the interview that he gave. And then you've got, of course, this chap from, you'll recognize him from Harry Potter. He plays the guy with the long hair who owns the guard dog. I forget the character.
Oh, Filch.
Yeah, David Bradley is the name of the actor.
Yeah.
And then look at the makeup.
And he was also Walder Frey in Game of Thrones.
Walder Frey in Game of Thrones. That's right. Yeah. Well remembered. Now, if you look here, look at Mark Strong and Christopher Eccleston here. This is for the last movie. They've aged them. So this story, but they've done such a good job. It looks really good. This story is set like over 30 years. And it's based on a play by a writer called Peter Flannery. And when I saw this show, straight away I said to my friend, oh, man, I've got to write something like that. And one of the big stories in the backdrop of this is the miners' strike, which tore the whole country apart. It really divided people, divided families, shattered friendships, destroyed towns and communities. It's a really big thing in British history. And I said to myself, I've got to write something similar where I follow these characters over 30 years and they get affected by something in history. That's what I want to do. And this is what inspired me to write my first, what I consider to be my first good piece of work. And that was the play Sticks and Stones, which I don't know if I've got it here, probably in the other room. But but it's my play about Northern Ireland, and you can get it on Amazon. So I'm going to get into that as well, about how that shaped my script, because this had a huge impact on me as a writer, and it really made me understand like what's possible with stories. You know, your story doesn't have to be set over 1 week or even 1 year; it can be set over 30 years. You know, our Friends in the North is responsible for a lot of creative choices in my life. So I'm going to be getting into that next Saturday. I've got my gaming stream on Tuesday. I'm not doing a Lance Weekly Roundup this Wednesday. I think I'll be doing one next week when I've watched a bit more stuff. I've also got a couple more episodes of the Best of British Drama coming up. We're going to be doing Hillsborough, paired up with Anne, which are the two dramas about the Hillsborough football disaster. So I'll be talking about them at length. Both of those are currently available, and that'll be interesting. So fantastic stuff. Okay, so it just remains for me to say thanks to Rennie at the very last minute for driving back at top speed from her ice cream parlor and coming and filling in for me when Dark Hour was not able to come on. Because, you know, it's a lot more fun if there's someone here, even if they only did see the film once 25 years ago and can't really remember it. And that's
well, I'm glad to support whenever I can. I just feel that I'm like, are you sure you want me? I'm not sure if I remember much of anything about this thing, but
that's okay. And now I'll tell you, we'll talk about it quickly backstage when we finish this. But if you can watch Our Friends in the North between now and next week, it would be really interesting, I think, to have someone who's completely removed from British culture watch that show and see if they get it, and see if the cultural message about the divides between the working class and the ruling class feel as relevant to you as an American as they do to a British person. I would be very interested to know that. I think it's a series that you'll really like. We will discuss that backstage. In the meantime, thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If it's the first time you've come to the channel, I thank you. Lots more content to come. Don't forget to check out my interview with Jeff Farley, makeup artist from Babylon 5, Demolition Man, and a whole heap of other things. And he works in other areas as special effects. That's on the 17th of October. But until then, don't forget what I always say. Always tell that important person in your life that you love them. And I will talk to you again real soon. Bye.
bye.
Oh, that's good. I was waiting